Hi, I'm Tammy Beilstein. Welcome to Tammy's Window on Calaveras. So you guys know what I did. I'm not sure if you remember a ways back, I found this time machine at the TV studio. It's maybe from the early 1800s or so, and I think our studio manager, Ed Lark, bought it when it was brand new, a long time ago. And I fired that baby up because last time I did, I had two very popular, well-known, loved celebrities from Calaveras County come and visit me, and I wanted to bring them back again, and I did. So powered that baby up, and I have with me now the well-known author Mark Twain and his best buddy, and mine too, David Rainwater. David, when you were on the other side, I heard a faint sound of music. Were you playing something over there? Will you play something?
There were some musical sounds wafting through the air. There was this one here.
Let me hear it. It was beautiful. Oh, that was it. That's beautiful. What is that called?
That's called The Minstrel Boy. It's a very old tune.
Oh, but new to you, right? How old is that song?
It's several hundred years old, I believe.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, and it's so pretty. And you make it look so easy to play it.
Oh, it's only got 4 strings on there.
That's all? Oh, it's lovely. So have you guys been together all this time, or you've been off doing your own thing? What's up with you two?
Well, we've done a few shows here and there, Tammy. Yeah. And by the way, I believe that song is older than I am.
Is it?
Why, this year I am 177 years old.
You look fantastic.
Why, thank you. You know, just the other day I received a compliment from a young lady such as yourself. She said, why, Mr. Twain, you look 100 years old. I said, my dear, I haven't had a compliment like that in 77 years.
Well, you both look great. I'd like to know your secrets, but I guess the time machine has something to do with that, huh?
Well, you know, I like that time machine. It's a lot faster than, well, it's faster than walking.
Yes.
It is faster than riding a horse.
Yes.
In fact, it is faster than taking a steam train. You know, just the other day I took a ride on a steam train over in Jamestown, California.
Oh, yeah.
That train was so slow, I had to tell the engineer, well, I recommended he take the cowcatcher off the front of the train and put it back on the caboose. Because at the rate we were going, we weren't going to catch any cows. But at least if it were on the back of the train, it would prevent them from climbing aboard.
Oh.
I do like this time machine. It's a nice way to travel.
Yeah. So is Jamestown near where you lived when you were in Calaveras?
Well, no, I lived at a place called Jackass Hill.
Yeah.
Not far from here, just over yonder. It was in Tuolumne County over there.
Tuolumne.
And there's a facsimile of that cabin still standing.
Have you gone to visit?
Well, now and then I do tend to, well, I appear. They say spirits are known to wander that area. Let me know if you ever see any over there, will you?
Oh, I think it'd be really cool to be at that cabin and take you with me. Wouldn't that be really neat?
Why, yes, it would. You know, it would take me back to the days where I guess it all started.
But tell me about that.
Well, you know, I like to think about the very beginning because, well, you know, I've been associated with some of the famous authors. Mm-hmm. Why, it makes me nervous. You know, Shakespeare is dead. Chaucer, he is dead. Why, Milton and Spencer, they are dead also. Uh-huh. And there are days I'm not feeling too well myself.
I think we have a ways to go with you. Well, you're alive and kicking.
Oh, well, thanks so much. Thank you so much. You know, my specialty was the lowest form of literature known to mankind. It's called humor. Mm. Yes, indeed. And you know, I believe that outside of a dog, a good book is a man's best friend.
Yes.
Inside a dog, it's too dark to read.
That is true.
Yes.
That is true. I hadn't thought of that, have you?
Well, I guess it all started over there at that cabin.
Yeah.
And, you know, I spent a lot of time there with the Gillis boys. Why, Jim Gillis, Steve Gillis, Bill Gillis. Oh, yes, I spent time with them at that cabin, about 88 days altogether. About 3 months, a little bit more. It was in, as I recall, the winter of 1864-65. I remember I arrived there on December 4th, 1864.
Huh.
We spent some days pocket mining. Well, I observed them doing the pocket mining. One afternoon, we found ourselves over at a tavern in Angel's Camp. It was there, that afternoon, there was a terrible storm. Rain was driving against the windows. There was a warm fire in the potbelly stove. It was that afternoon, sipping sarsaparilla there, that old Ben Coon told us a story about a miner, an old miner named Smiley. Yes, indeed. Well, that story, it went something like this. There was a fellow here once by the name of Jim Smiley. Why, it was the winter of 49 or the spring of 50. I don't recollect exactly somehow. It seems to me, though, it was one or the other, because the big mining flume weren't built yet when that feller first come to camp. Anyways, he was the curiousest man about betting on anything that ever turned up you ever see, just so as long as he could get somebody to take the other side. And if he couldn't, why, he would change sides. Any way that supported the other man, supported him. Any way he could get a bet, he was satisfied. Well, one day he catched him a frog. He took him home. He figured, well, he calculated he would educate him. He didn't do nothing for the next 3.5 months except learnt that frog how to jump. You bet he learnt him good too. He'd push him from behind. Next minute, why, that frog would be whirling in the air like a donut. Come down flat-footed and all right, just like a cat. And he got him up, practiced him up so much and got him up so much in the way of catching flies, practiced him up so well, why, he'd catch a fly every time far as he could see one. Well, Smiley said all the frog ever wanted was an education. He could do most anything. And I believe him too. Yes, indeed. One day, he took Daniel was the name of that frog, by the way. He took Daniel and set him down on the floor. Then he sings out, "Flies, Daniel, flies." Well, quicker than you can wink your eye, that frog springs up, snakes a fly right off the counter, and then flops right back down on the floor, just as solid as a gob of mud. Then he goes to scratching the back of his head, real indifferent-like, with his hind foot, as if he had no idea he was doing anything different than any other frog might do. Well, you ain't never seen a frog so modest and straightforward as he was, for all he was so gifted. And when it come to fair and square jumping on the dead level, that frog could cover more ground in one straddle than any other animal of his breed you ever see. Why, jumping on a dead level was his strong suit, you understand. When it come to that, why, Smiley would lay down money on him down to the last red cent in his pocket. He was monstrous proud of that frog. And well, he might be. Because boys that had traveled all over and seen everything, why, they said that frog laid over on any other frog they ever see. Well, Smiley, he used to keep that frog in a little lattice box. Now and then he would fetch him into town and just lay there for a bet. One day, a fella comes into town, a stranger he was. He sees Smiley with that box. He says, "What might it be you got in that box right there?" "Well," says Smiley, real indifferent like, "he might be a parrot or a canary, maybe. But he ain't. He's only just a frog." "So it is. But what's he good for?" "Well," says Smiley, "I judge he's good enough for one thing. He can out-jump any frog in Calaveras County." "Well, I don't see no points about that frog's better than any other frog." "Maybe you don't," says Smiley. "Maybe you understand frogs and maybe you don't understand them. Maybe you had experience and maybe you ain't just but an amateur, as it were. Anyways, I got my opinion and I will risk $40 he can out-jump any frog in Calaveras County." Well, the stranger, he got a low-down, mournful look on his face. He said, well, I ain't got no frog. I'm just a stranger here in the camp. That's all right, says Smiley. That's all right. You just hold my lattice box and wait right here with your $40, and I will go and get you a fresh jumper. Well, the stranger sat down to wait. He sat there a good long while. At last he commenced thinking, and thinking to himself. Then he reaches back, reaches down, opens up that lattice box. He takes out Daniel, reaches around, pulls out a miner's poke full of lead quail shot and a spoon. He pries Daniel's mouth open, pours in about a half a miner's poke full of lead quail shot, shakes it down his gullet all the way to his belly. Why, it filled him up to his chin, almost to his eyeballs. Then he put him back. Meanwhile, Smiley had been splashing around out there in that swamp a good long while. Well, he catched the frog and fetched him back to the stranger. All right, here's your frog. You just sit him down next to Daniel here, and with his legs even with Daniel's, fair and square, and I will give the word. 1, 2, 3, jump. Daniel hoisted up a little bit more so, but it weren't no use. He was planted there on the floor like an anvil. He couldn't no more stir than if he had been a ship anchored out in the harbor. Well, come on, Daniel, jump, jump. Daniel hoisted up again, a little more so this time. He still couldn't budge. It weren't no use. He just sat there like a lump of Portland cement. He was as stiff as a carpenter's workbench. Meanwhile, the stranger's frog jumped like a spring off a rock clean out of Calaveras County. And he won that bet. Well, just as he was leaving with his money, walking out the door, he threw his thumb over his shoulder and said, I don't see no points about that frog. It's better than any other frog. And he left. Smiley was a good deal surprised and disgusted. He stood there a good long time, scratching his head and looking down at Daniel. At last he says, I wonder what in the world that frog throwed over for. I wonder if there ain't something the matter with him. He reaches down, picks Daniel up by the nape of the neck, and blame his cats if Daniel hadn't gained about 5 pounds. He examines him this way, that way, and the other, and Daniel belches out about half a miner's shovel full of lead quail shot.
Oh, no.
Well, Smiley sees how it was, and he was mad. He was the maddest man. He was as mad as if he had been stung by 1,000 hornets. Well, he took out after that stranger, but he never catched him. So there you have it. You go around town thinking you're the smartest somebody. There's always going to be another somebody who's going to get the jump on you. Mm-hmm. That's the story that we heard around that wood stove that evening in the little tavern there in Angel's Camp.
What a great story.
And that's how it all started right there.
I love the way you tell it. That's so riveting.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Yes, indeed.
Ribbit.
That is such a great story.
Well, I got that story the old-fashioned way. I stole it. Then I put a copyright on it. The rest you may say is American history.
Did it go directly into a book, or was it put in the newspaper first? How did you get that story out there?
Well, you know, a friend of mine, Artemis Ward, he published that for me over in New York at the New York Post. And that story, why, it caught hold and spread like a western wildfire all across the eastern U.S.
Oh, wow.
You see, the timing of that story was perfect. It really wasn't that funny altogether. But think about it. The year was 1865 in October. Mm-hmm. Well, only months before, our nation had gone through and ended a civil war. Lee surrendered at Appomattox in April. Not many days after that, why, we lost our President Lincoln. Our country was in a state of mourning and shock. This nation needed something to chuckle about, and then along hops this story out of Calaveras County.
Yeah.
So the timing was very fortunate there.
Yeah. Well, thank goodness we have the two of you here in Calaveras to occupy people's minds, get them back thinking happy thoughts at such a hard time in history. So now you have your music to entertain all of us.
That's right. I love to hang around Mr. Twain
Yeah.
ever since he came to Virginia City, and he said about them fiddlers, you know, he said, I count the man that could fiddle all night at one of them Virginia reels and not lose his grip on the bow is a man that could be counted on in any occasion. Thank you, Mr. Twain, for giving us fiddlers some kudos.
Of course,
Nice.
David.
Well, I have a tune picked out that's appropriate just for that very story you told.
Oh, I'd love to
It's
hear it.
a little melody that was a songwriter was walking down the street in Philadelphia around 1856. And this tune gradually gained popularity over the years into modern times and became the theme song for the Three Stooges. And you'll recognize the tune. This young little black boy was whistling the tune, and songwriter, his real name was Septimus Winter, but he went by Alice Hawthorne because Septimus just didn't fit, you know. I mean, what was the mother thinking? Hey, Septi, come on over here, you know. That don't work. Anyway.
It doesn't quite roll, does it,
No,
off the
it
tongue?
don't. Anyway, a lot of those folks change their name, but the tune is called Listen to the Mockingbird. It's for the birds.
Wow.
A Bob White and a whippoorwill and a baby chick.
Oh, cool.
A yellow-bellied sapsucker. And then there's the red-bellied sapsucker. Kind of sound the same to me, and I hope there's no ornithologists out there listening in. And a woodpecker.
Oh, God, that blows me away. That is so neat.
Yeah, that was about popular during that time, and gradually grew more popular over the years. So
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
hope
I don't
there
know
was-
how you keep all these in your head.
Well, you could
You have no music in front of you.
you can shine a light in my eyes and see the back of my head every time. So it's
That is just really neat. Do you
Thank
remember
you.
hearing that song?
You
when
know,
it-
I remember
yeah.
hearing that down in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. You know, they had a lot of minstrels down there.
They did.
Back in the year 1861.
minstrelsy was
Right
very
on.
popular, and people were coming out. The minstrel troops were coming out, entertaining the miners, and in San Francisco in
Oh.
particular.
What
where
does
you spent
minstrel
some-
mean, by the way?
Well, it's an old term for musicians, wandering musicians.
Okay.
Comes from Europe.
Okay.
Those were wild times in San Francisco, weren't they, David?
Indeed, they were.
You know,
The Barbary Coast.
the Barbary Coast, and you know, I recall that most of the reporters down there, why we all the news reporters carried complimentary shares from all the mines over in the mighty Comstock, you see, because they would give us shares in order to write stories about their prospects.
Okay.
And I actually remember that these these shares were traded vigorously on the Pacific Exchange right there in San Francisco. Their values fluctuated wildly. It was the Wild West, and the values would change on a daily basis.
Boy.
Oh, yes, indeed. It was risky investing in stocks at that time. I remember one time I attended a service at the Presbyterian Church. Why, the minister there, he made a wonderful speech and a wonderful sermon about, well, contributing to the poor. I decided that I would contribute my 500 shares of the Savage mine over in Virginia City to the plate when it came around. So I waited for the congregation to pass the plate, and it was as it was going around, why the preacher continued, and about that time I had the 500 shares in my hand, and a friend of mine looked over and he said, "Oh, by the way, did you know that the shares in the Savage mine are dropping this morning? They're dropping like a rock. 100, 200, 300. Well, I'll tell you this, Tammy, by the time that plate got back around to me, I had to take $10 out of it just to break even. They were wild times down there in San Francisco.
You guys had it rough. You had it rough. I don't know if I could have done that, but thank goodness you two did.
Well, I'll tell you, for fiddlers, it was the golden age of fiddling.
Was it?
Oh, absolutely. They said that one other newspaper reporter from the northern mine area, from Marysville area, said that anybody who could torture catgut and horsehair into any reasonably consecutive sounds made more than the miners out on the claims in the bars.
They did, huh?
Yeah, that's right. I would have been a rich man back then.
Oh, so. You should be a rich man now with that talent.
Well, don't take up fiddling for a living. Take my advice. Stay in school and don't quit your day job.
Oh, my goodness. Speaking of schools, is there any way that we could get you two while you're here at some point to visit our schools that we have in Calaveras?
Well, we have done some. In fact, we did a show at West Point Elementary, Mr. Twain and I.
Yeah?
I've been doing schools in Calaveras County for a number of years, actually. My musical treasures from the Gold Rush era and America's Frontier Days. Long name, but it says what it is.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, we're so lucky to have you guys here. So anything we can do to get you out there, everybody of every age should be listening to you. You with your stories and your history.
Well, you know, if schools contact us, we're more than happy to try to answer up to the call now.
We need to fire up that time machine to get you.
Oh, there, yes, indeed.
We could do that, though.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, you know the secret there.
Yes, I do.
You're a regular operator.
I am.
And I understand that time machine is steam driven. Is that right?
Yes, but we need to be careful nowadays, though, because it's so dry around here.
Oh,
the
that's
fire
right.
danger.
That's
Yes.
right. That's right. We are in a California drought right now.
Yes, we are.
You know, as a matter of fact, as I recall, just last week I saw some fish over there in the reservoir, and they were wearing sunglasses. That's how dry it is. Yes, indeed. They were sunbathing. Okay. But, you know, fire danger is actually, it is a very serious matter.
It is.
You know, I recall many years ago, back in 1862, I took a trip with my mining partner, John Kinney, up to Lake Tahoe. We had failed at gold and silver mining, miserably failed there, but we decided that we would stake ourselves a timber ranch.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. We traveled up there to Tahoe. We camped out there for a period of 3 weeks. Yes, and you know, at that time, why the water of Lake Tahoe was so perfectly crystalline pure that you could see to a depth of 65 feet.
Boy.
You could see every boulder, every rock, every pebble, even the grains of sand. Why, it was nearly impossible to go fishing there, Tammy. That's because the trout could see your line, the bait, the hook, and they knew it was a counterfeit.
Right.
Yes, indeed.
That'd be tough.
Yes. But I'll tell you something. The climate up there, that rarefied atmosphere, is salubrious. I do not know what that word means.
I don't either.
I was
That's a
gonna
good
ask.
word.
But it is a good and high-sounding word, and I intend to use it, meaning
Yes.
no harm, whatever.
Yes.
Anyway, while the climate there is healthy, it is so entirely healthy, I believe that it could restore an Egyptian mummy to perfect health and vigor. Not one of them ancient mummies, one of the fresher ones.
Oh, a fresh one. That's different, yeah.
Well, we drift along off the shoreline there. The entire landscape opened up beneath our boat in perfect clarity in that crystalline water. You know, it's as if we were sailing in the sky. One afternoon, I decided to get an early start on cooking supper. I headed down to the boat to get supplies. But before I did that, why, I started a little campfire there for cooking on the shoreline. I headed down to the boat. I was all supplied up and ready to head back when all of a sudden I heard John. He said, he was yelling, "Sam, Sam, the fire!" I turned just in time to see that a Washoe zephyr, a small wind, had come up off that lake. It was blowing sparks and embers outside the campfire ring, and they were landing everywhere in the dry grass, the pine needles, and the brush. Well, I took my jacket off, ran over, and tried to put it out, but I couldn't get it. John tried to help me, but it weren't no use. It weren't no use. All we could do is watch that fire spread, and spread it did. Got into the brush and the small trees, and then it started climbing up the big trees where the wind took hold of it and blew it from tree to tree until it became a raging forest fire.
Oh, no.
We watched that fire burn all afternoon and jump from canyon to canyon. That night, the flames were perfectly reflected in the mirror surface of Lake Tahoe. If I just had the presence of mind to clear around that fire before I lit it, down to bare mineral soil, say 5 or 10 feet.
Yeah.
If I'd had a pail of water and a shovel to douse out trouble just in case.
Yeah.
If I'd not burned under windy conditions and set that fire. And most important of all, if I had never turned my back on that fire for 1 minute and left it unattended, if I'd done all those things, I would still have my timber ranch today. But as it was, I had to watch my dreams of timber ranching go up in towering flames and thick black smoke.
Oh, I'm so sad for you that happened, but good lessons today that you shared with us.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So I advise everybody to be careful with your campfire this year, and be sure to not let your fire escape.
Yes.
And also something very important, there are special restrictions in effect right now on national forests and on state lands. And well, we want to make sure that our playground doesn't burn up. Ain't that right, David?
That's right.
That's right. Hey, we are out of time, and I want to thank you both so much for being here. I would like to leave with some more of your music. Can you do that for me?
Let's do a tune from that time period.
Just keep playing out. We're
The
almost
old
out of
Jenny
time.
Lynn polka. They danced that to the Virginia reel quite a bit.